Very warm welcome. I'm Bronwyn Maddox, Director of Chatham House, and I'm very pleased that we're having this conversation today with His Excellency Dr. Husam Zomlot, the head of the Palestine mission to the UK. In case you're in any doubt, this is on the record and being live streamed. Welcome to those online. I want to give a brief introduction because your background is immensely interesting. Ambassador is the head of the Palestinian mission, as I said, but before that, he served as Strategic Affairs Advisor to the Palestinian President, Ambassador to the United States, head of the PLO General Delegation to the United States, and his previous official roles include serving as Ambassador at Large for the Palestinian Presidency. And he's also been Director of the Fatah Foreign Relations Commission and First Counselor, again, of the mission in the UK. So a warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us at these very heightened times of interest in these particular questions about the future of a Palestine state or otherwise. Let me start with asking you exactly that. We've had Belgium today adding itself to the list of countries along with the UK, France and others, saying that it will recognize a Palestine state at the United Nations General Assembly. The UK has added various conditions to that, as you know. What difference does this recognition or promises of recognition make?
First of all, thank you very much, Bronwyn, for this invitation and this opportunity for Chatham House. They tell me that you invite people on their way up on the Chatham House rules, but you invite people on their way down on the record, so thank you for inviting me on the record. As for the issue of recognition, we, and with us, the region and the rest of the international community, are in desperate and real search for an alternative path. We are absolutely armed with the resilience and steadfastness of our people, despite 77 years of attempts at erasure. We are armed with international law and legality and consensus, and we are armed with the realization that there is no military solution to the situation. And recognition comes in this respect. We have also learned the lessons of the last 30 years of failed peace processes. The first lesson is that the Oslo, while we recognize the state of Israel, Israel never reciprocated. And having failed to agree on the final destination has led us to where we are today. Israel used the Oslo process to actually undermine the very final destination we agreed on, which is the two-state solution. Okay. So recognition is a first step. It's not a final step. It's just a first meaningful, significant step in an international momentum to implement the two-state solution rather than negotiate it. So we welcome Belgium announcement as we did welcome the UK announcement.
So what do you say? You use the word meaningful there. What do you say to people who say, look, this is just a symbol, it means nothing?
Recognition is not a symbolic act. And I have said for the last so many years here in the UK this. I said, the question is never why should you recognize? Why should the UK recognize? The question is always why the UK did not recognize for all these years. And the fact that it did not recognize led us to where we are today. There are many aspects of the recognition, none of which will actually lead to implementing the two-state solution. There has to be many other steps that we build on. But it is a first step without which we cannot get to the finish line. And go back to the last 30 years and you'll know. But French, Spanish, Irish recognition is something. And the UK recognition is something else.
Because?
Because of the history. Because of the gravest historic injustice that has been inflicted on the Palestinian people. Because of the colonial era. Because of promising our land without consulting us. Because turning us.
You're referring to the Balfour Declaration, 1917.
Of course, the Balfour Declaration. And I refer you to the Foreign Secretary only yesterday in the Parliament, David Lammy, and at the UN General Assembly, speaking about the historic injustice that has been committed against the Palestinian people. So look at the recognition as correction of this historic injustice. Look at the recognition as the starting gun, just the starting gun for a real, meaningful, not lip service. And I have to accuse the UK and the rest of the West for 30 years of giving lip service to the two-state solution. Look at it as the first meaningful starting point to a march or a sprint, not more than a year and a half, to actually implement international resolutions rather than negotiate them.
So thank you for dealing with that. And we were discussing just next door what you described as the rise in international pressure on this. Do you think this pressure amounts to anything if the US does not join it? And we've just had the US refusing a visa for Mahmoud Abbas to go to the UN.
Yes, it does. International pressure matters. And it's not just the US that has a responsibility here. It is the rest of the international community. And without the international community's leverage over Israel, nothing would happen. So I am not with the idea that only the US can do this. The US has been trying with us, has been having a monopoly over peacemaking, has been
a monopoly it didn't always want.
A monopoly it always sought and wanted. And it has excluded many other players over the last 30 years. The UK wanted to be a player, many others wanted to be a player. But mind you me, the biggest trading partner of Israel is not the US, it's the EU. The leverage that Europe has, the leverage that the rest of the international community has is immense. Go back to the South Africa experience, the apartheid regime and the anti-apartheid movement that now we see something very similar happening for
I'm going to come on to that in a moment.
And you will see that it was a concerted international effort. The US, the Reagan administration, was the last to come on board. So the rest of the world is crucial. And each country has a responsibility. Enough of 30 years of saying only the US, and therefore I sit on my hands and I do nothing. No, you do. And every country is either part of the solution or complicit in the genocide and the atrocities.
It is inevitable that we touch on history in this, whether 1917 or the last 30 years of negotiations. But I want to deal particularly with the immediate present and then try and push into the future. As to what that future might be. If we stick with the immediate present, what, in your view, is the chance of a ceasefire in Gaza? We obviously have a desperate situation in Gaza at the moment.
We are really at a very existential moment. I have literally just returned from a month in the homeland, in Palestine, in the West Bank.
In the West Bank.
It's the homeland. And I have been traveling north and south. I have visited almost every city and town. And what I have experienced, even I was not prepared for what I have seen. Rightly so, the attention is on the genocide in Gaza, the mass starvation in Gaza, the famine. And I'll tell you, what Israel is doing right now is just destroying whatever left of Gaza. It's obvious. What left of Gaza is few neighborhoods in the Gaza city. I was born there, I know the areas. And small little towns in the middle of Gaza, in Nusayrat, El-Brej, Deir el-Balah. This is what left of Gaza. Israel is preparing, as we speak today, to destroy that. So for Gaza, the only option for Israel is complete annihilation, extermination, and pushing whoever left outside. In the West Bank...
We can come on to some of those points. I want to hear what you have to say. I'm not accepting all of them.
That is the plan. This is not a conflict. It is not a conflict. We must never use the term conflict. This is not a war. War between who and who?
Israel would say to that, Hamas and Israel, it would not, I'm speaking for some, quoting some of the members of the Israeli government, not all of them, but it would say Hamas.
How do you describe that Israel completely and utterly refuses a ceasefire? A deal is on the table, and you know, and the rest of the world knows that Netanyahu is refusing it. A deal that would see the release of all hostages, the exchange of hostages, a deal that would see the reconstruction of Gaza, and all that you know. refusing the return of the PA to Gaza, that's a red line for Netanyahu and for Israel, refusing the Egyptian Arab peace plan and reconstruction, refusing the wave of recognition and the UN, revoking the visa of my president and the Palestinian leadership. You think this is a conflict? If it's a conflict, people always seek to find some diplomatic venues to try and sort things. If it's a war, people would seek to find ways to reach a ceasefire. This is not a conflict, this is not a war. And this, last sentence, this is not about our behavior. This is about our existence. And what I have seen in the West Bank, and please allow me, because it has shocked me to the core what I have witnessed in the West Bank. It is the existence of every Palestinian now that is being at stake. They are after everyone. The West Bank has turned completely into isolated Palestinian ghettos. Each town, each village is surrounded by barbed wires, one gate, one gatekeeper. While the settlements are becoming the center, urban sort of infrastructure of the West Bank, settlers are ransacking everywhere, rampaging, and you follow the settler terrorism on a daily basis. The economic and the financial strangulation of the West Bank has led to a situation of complete suffocation. I mean, 250,000 used to work in Israel, gone. 250,000 work for the PA, no salaries. That's more than half of the workforce.
And I completely agree with one of the points you're implicitly making, which is that what is happening and what Israel is doing on the West Bank is not being noticed as much because the world's attention is on Gaza, and that it is taking the territory. I completely agree with this point. But I want to, it is, at least by some members of the Israeli government, is very much by design. I want to return though to this question of the ceasefire. And you say it's not about our behavior. What do you say to the Israeli government lament, but is also the expression of many Israeli people of how can we get security? It's almost 20 years ago today that Ariel Sharon brought the settlements out of Gaza. That, right, you run it. We're going to focus on the land that will forever be Israel. We're out of Gaza. And the Israelis, as you know, say, what we've got since then is rockets, and then we got October 7th. What do you say? I'm not saying to every member of the Israeli government, but to Israeli people who say, where is our security? Where is that going to come from?
I say what Foreign Secretary Lamy said only a few hours ago in the parliament. He said, security can only come from definitive borders and rights, not from indefinite occupation. He's right. And Israel has got to listen from one of its closest allies, that is the UK, and has got to listen to the rest of the world. Have you ever seen a situation whereby security is assured without resolving the political issues? I mean, what is this logic? And put Hamas aside. Here we are, for the last so many years, engaged solely, exclusively on diplomatic legal tracks, wanting to seek multilateral forums, wanting to seek recognitions, wanting to shore up the very vision that even Israel claimed to endorse, which is the two-state solution. And the moment we do so, we are described as diplomatic terrorists, and we are sanctioned by the US. And our president and our government officials are disallowed from traveling to the General Assembly. So, last sentence here. No matter what we do, peaceful resistance, boycotts, armed resistance, diplomatic resistance, we are completely and utterly besieged. And then the conversation is about Palestinian behavior rather than about the root cause of all this. You know what? Israel will only accept us if we accept our erasure. If we accept to be killed in silence.
Yeah. Now, you don't, on this platform, at least, have to make the case for diplomacy. Chatham House is firmly of the view and the principle that diplomacy and negotiation and political settlement is preferable to fighting, and that is something argued down the years here. But I'm still trying to get to this sense of how you would answer that charge to Israel of Israel's security, because that has to be part, and we're going to go on to talk about the future, but it is very hard to get to that future without dealing with what are the conditions for a ceasefire, if you like. How do you say to people in Israel who say we gave it to them for 20 years and we got October 7th?
I would say to the Israeli people, focus on the root cause. Understand that without respecting, acknowledging that we have rights too, that supremacy and racism and bigotry does not work. As long as I can talk to them, I would tell them that Fatah, Hamas, this and that are not the cause of the conflict. They are the symptoms. They are the outcome. And we need to focus on the root cause. It pains me when I see hundreds of thousands of Israelis in the streets demonstrating over the years, and the issue of occupation is completely absent. Completely absent. Even in the last 2 years. It's all about releasing the hostages, rightly so, but not much about their neighbors and what their army is doing to their neighbors, and how that is corrupting not just the army and the settlers, but corrupting the Israeli society itself. But as far as Hamas is concerned, there is a consensus, just to answer your question. There is a plan. The plan was endorsed by the Arab League. And the plan is that there will be a committee, a technocratic committee in charge of Gaza. Does not include any political faction. Not Hamas, not Fatah, not anybody. And guess what? Hamas accepts that. Who doesn't accept that? Who does not accept the unity of the Palestinian people, the unity of the Palestinian land, West Bank and Gaza, including East Jerusalem, and the unity of the Palestinian political system? One man, Netanyahu. And that's why we need to create the leverage, not only recognition, sanctions, accountability in the international arenas, the ICC, full arms embargo. Netanyahu will not listen. He's not listening to anybody. And everybody is telling him, including President Biden, if you remember, at the beginning of the events, he told him, do not do what we did after the 11th of September. Do not go after your rage and after your revenge. And look what happened. So we need to make Netanyahu and Israel listen. And that's why there is such a momentum now to create that leverage. So finally, Netanyahu listens to the rest of the world.
Or maybe he doesn't, but maybe your audience then is the Israeli people. You said Netanyahu and the Israelis, there are elections due within a year. And what I'm probing for is your argument to Israeli people about what could come if they picked someone, say, other than their current prime minister.
It cannot be a zero sum. Israeli people have to understand they cannot have the cake and eat it too. They cannot just imagine that the West Bank and Gaza, they call it the territories, is like 20,000 miles away. It's literally 15 minutes drive from a place to a place. And they have to seriously stop thinking that this can be turned into a permanent situation. Because that's exactly what Netanyahu told them 20 years ago. He told them, I will derail Oslo, and he did. And he told them, I will turn this situation, this occupation and settlements into a permanent situation. He is doing it. And he told them, and guess what? I will normalize the relationship of Israel with the rest of the region on these bases. And they elected him. Now they have to realize that that was a very, very empty, dangerous, racist, hateful promises. They should elect somebody who would actually accept that there are 7.5 million Palestinians living on the land of historic Palestine, and there are 7.5 million Palestinians in the refugee camps outside. And they must realize that this nation has its rights, and no matter what, after another 100 years, we'll continue struggling for our rights. And today, we have a global movement that is not just in solidarity with Palestine. No. Palestine has become global Palestine. Today, we have a global movement emanated from London. Your country has become the center, the epicenter of the global movement. This global movement believes in joint struggle. Joint struggle.
In what sense do you say that London is the centre? You've got big protests on campuses in the US. Very surprising to many people. You've got much of the same over much of the world, including countries which are neighbours in the Middle East.
But London has started this whole thing. It emanated here. It started here. Remember, at the beginning, in October, in November, 1 million Britons took to the streets in one day.
That number, I have to say, is not complete consensus behind it.
I was there.
All right.
I stood.
All right.
I saw the streets of London.
Plus
it
one.
doesn't matter the exact number.
Yeah.
What matters, London started this movement, and it has the biggest numbers in comparison to any place. And it has a historic relevance because the British people are the most active, the most engaged, the most aware, and the most conscious about the history and the Balfour Declaration and the colonial era, on the one hand. On the other hand, look at the anti-apartheid movement. Draw the similarities. Where did the anti-apartheid movement emanated from? London. There are reasons, historic reasons, present reasons, why London and the UK has always been the epicenter. So when I see that London has become the epicenter for the global Palestine and the joint struggle for Palestine, and Palestine has become a global movement, I am way more hopeful than I am depressed.
So let's come on. We're going to have to jump over the question of a ceasefire because it is so phenomenally difficult. Not just for us here, but obviously for the world. So let's go on to some questions about what a future might look like. And you described to me how you feel that this was 1 minute to midnight in the sense of trying to extract a Palestinian state from the current situation. The anti-apartheid movement had a leader, Mandela, in jail. Who is the leader of the Palestinian movement? Who would be that leader of the state? Who is that figurehead who the world could look to say, okay, this is the leader of the future Palestinian state?
We have a president. And we have the Palestine Liberation Organization, which is an umbrella that represents all Palestinians. Yes, there is a Palestinian conversation, rightly so. They have the absolute right to discuss issues of renewal, issues of democratic processes. All that has been discussed by the various Palestinian constituencies. But we do have one flag, we have one address. Here in the UK, you have one address. That's the embassy and the ambassador. Soon to be an embassy, now it's a mission. And we worked hard. It took us years, decades, to agree on one address. Now, in our history,
sorry, one address being?
One address being the PLO.
Yes.
That is recognized by the international community. Our office here is the PLO office. Yes. Our office in Washington, which I used to head.
You are not the leader, forgive me, of a future Palestinian state. And Mahmoud Abbas is mistrusted by many Palestinians. It runs an authority, technocratic, as you said, it's an is a government, but has not had widespread support among Palestinians, never mind.
That will be decided by the Palestinian people.
Yes.
And I told you I just returned from the West Bank, and the one agreement in the conversation is that elections are imminent. There will soon have to be an election process that brings back the Palestinian people into the equation, and they decide. They will decide.
When you say soon for elections, what do you mean?
Maximum 1 year. The only solution, in our opinion, to the situation internally is the ballot box. There is no other solution.
And so you will hold those elections within 1 year for the presidency and other roles?
Under the condition that the genocide ends, because we will be very busy healing the wounds, bringing some makeshift homes for people.
No, I can understand all that, but given the importance you're putting on that, why not have those elections anyway?
Yes.
Making it conditional on what you're calling genocide. I'm not getting into the...
No, it's not conditional. You cannot convene elections without 40% of your people. And you cannot convene elections without 350,000 of your people in Jerusalem.
Yes.
So you need to prepare for it. You need to make sure it happens. You need to find creative ways that it happens. But I assure you, there will not be a Palestinian president that is not elected. The Palestinian people will not accept any leader who is not elected directly by them, and there will not be Palestinian leaders, not just the one leader, leadership that is not elected. There will not be a Palestinian parliament that is not elected. We have no other formula. President Abbas was elected. Yes, we have gone into many internal issues. The coup d'etat in 2007 in Gaza, the separation between Gaza and the West Bank, Israel's veto over our election process in Jerusalem. We have run into many obstacles. However, we never had one president that was not elected. Yasser Arafat, when he came back to the occupied territories at the start of Oslo, had to offer, and he's the founder of the movement and the father of the nation, had to offer his name for elections. And he was contested, by the way, by a great lady, Samiha Khalil. So he was elected. President Abbas was elected. Okay, we ran a bit late for convening the elections on time, but I assure you, we will never accept, nor the Palestinian people, anything less what the Palestinian people demand, which is democracy, and the people have the source of legitimacy, no other.
It's been a long time since there have been elections in Gaza, which obviously Hamas won, and then the elections were not repeated. Where does Hamas fit into this? And supposing Hamas gets a significant presence in those elections, is that a problem for what goes forward?
Well, as we started by saying, we did agree with all actors involved, all partners involved, that the future will involve one Palestinian government in charge of both the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and Gaza, that government will not involve Hamas or any other political parties. That's agreed.
It will still be elected?
As for the, that will be technocratic.
A technocratic government.
Governments are technocratic. As for elections, not you, not me, not anyone will decide. It will be the Palestinian people. They will decide. And once they decide, we should never repeat the mistakes of 2006. We have to respect the will of the Palestinian people. As for Hamas and how it will pose itself and how it will be part of this, there is an internal Palestinian dialogue, very serious. It's been going on for some time. But that has got to be an internal Palestinian conversation, because there is no other solution. Any externally imposed solution is not going to do.
But nonetheless, you have countries, Israel obviously one, who won't deal with Hamas, but there are others in the region as well who are not keen to deal with Hamas. So I think even though you're describing it as an internal Palestinian problem, to include Hamas in some kind of elected political structure, does it not represent a problem for any kind of resolution you want of this?
That's why it will be up for Hamas. And it will be up for internal revisions within Hamas and internal revisions within the Palestinian polity. And I assure you, and go back to the history, the Palestinian people are very clever. They will elect the people who would actually serve them best. So leave it to them. You will find them to be more aware than the rest of the international community who is best to lead them. And you know what, while we have issues and we understand that in the day after it has to be the PA, and we are absolutely clear that there has to be one law, one government, one police force, and we will do that. It's a commitment. And we will do that not because it has to do with Hamas only. We will do that because we know that the main requirement for us right now is to keep the unity of our people, territory, and political system. But in the very end, Hamas is part of the Palestinian political, national, and social fabric. And they will not just disappear in a second. What we are discussing is not erasing. We are fighting Israel's erasure. What we are discussing is reform, change of direction, internal dialogue, so we avert Israel's complete annihilation project, and we maximize our interest at this critical moment that you described earlier as a minute before midnight.
It was your phrase, but I picked it up because it is so resonant. Let me ask you a few more things before I come to questions, but just as we are on Hamas, do you condemn what Hamas did on October 7th?
Seriously?
Yes.
Seriously.
I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
2 years, and you have seen the many interviews in this regard on the 7th of October and what followed should have been clear that what we rejected was not what we believe in. And I'm not here to defend ourselves because ourselves is very clear. We are absolutely, adamantly against targeting civilians. Absolutely. And our entire DNA for so many years is diplomacy. That's why I left academia and I wanted to be a diplomat because I believe
And
this
as
is
I said, you don't need to make that case here.
I don't need to make
entirely
that
agreed
case.
on that
What
point.
I have refused, and I refuse this question, is because such a question has exactly led us to where we are today. And this was not the first time that you asked Palestinian officials to condemn ourselves. Because, you know, and that's the conversation I've had all along. This is about such double standards, such racism, such deep embedded dehumanization of the Palestinian people that I reject. I reject. On the 6th of October, the UN announced that it was the deadliest year for Palestinian children killed by Israeli forces in the West Bank. And I told your BBC anchors on the 7th of October and on the 8th, why did you not bring me here to discuss the killing of 360 children in the West Bank? And why, since the 7th of October, and despite the very well-recorded genocide, everyone saying now it is genocide, including Israeli human rights organizations like B'Tselem, and still until now, Israeli officials, including the Israeli ambassador here, appears on all platforms and not one question about condemnation. What is this? What is this?
We are all here today against a backdrop of more than 60,000 Palestinians being killed by Israeli action in Gaza, by an encroachment by Israel on the West Bank, using violence in many cases, by famine declared by UN agency in parts of Gaza. That is the backdrop. But it is still a question which is not about the Palestinian people. It is about Hamas and the role in the future, which is what we're here to discuss. So you may reject the question, but it still hangs there. Let me turn to a different question about the future. And you refer to it as well, about the contribution of countries in the region and the plan. Various call it the Arab plan, the Egyptian plan, various countries have tried to take leadership in this, but it is a new element. Conceivably a very positive element. The countries in the region, the Saudis in particular, saying we are throwing our weight behind this. We want a state and a commitment to a state for the Palestinians. And we offer Israel all kinds of normalization, but we must have this commitment. Is that a support that you can use at this point? And if so, how do you use it?
Absolutely. And it's a momentum that is real, that is meaningful, and that has the right steps. And I started by saying we started on the wrong steps 30 years ago. We start by a firm commitment by the international community not to negotiations, because bilateralism between us and Israel for 30 years have led us to the minute before midnight, have led us to the acts of erasure. I didn't speak about the West Bank as much as I wanted.
No, I'm coming on to that.
You didn't allow me to talk about the actual acts
yeah.
of erasure in the West Bank everywhere. Not just Gaza, genocide, starvation, and what have you. And by the way, Israel within, I think the plan is within weeks, maximum months, Gaza is completely gone. But the West Bank will take them a bit longer, but it's the same plan. So at this point in time, what you need is to try and put sticks in this erasure wheel. That happens through ceasefire. The region is also pushing and pushing and pushing for ceasefire, creating leverage for ceasefire. This insanity must end, because nothing will make sense if you don't end this insanity. Number two, the region has a plan and the will and the investment to immediately deal with the atrocities and the catastrophes Israel left in Gaza. We have a plan. Every other day we are in Cairo. Now there is a senior delegation in Cairo discussing details of how do we begin at minute one to immediately alleviate this unprecedented human suffering in human history. And the plan is real. And the support and the finance of this plan is there. And Cairo is preparing to convene a conference for reconstruction of Gaza. And London is convening a conference for reconstruction of Gaza. Remember, the UK, Egypt is the co-chairs of the reconstruction process in the multilateral plan that will be convened, that was convened in July and now will be convened in New York again on the 22nd of September. Lastly, and of course the region and with us, and by the way, everything I said until now has the full support of the international community, including the UK and the EU.
The UK is very much behind the Arab plan.
Yes, but the Arab plan is not just about ceasefire. It's not just about ending this. And the Arab plan knows that we can end this tomorrow. We can end the insanity, the madness, the atrocities, the evil tomorrow. And we have the formula. And it's not just about rebuilding Gaza and bringing back the Palestinian united government. The Arab plan and the Palestinian plan and the international plan is also that peace is possible. How is that? At this 1 minute before midnight, at this most existential minute of our life, we believe peace is possible. And that's why the Saudi and the Arab momentum is crucial. Because while Netanyahu is busy in his war of annihilation and extermination and genocide, we are busy building an actual track for peace. And every act on the way is an act of peace, including sanctions. Here, in what we're doing, when the UK government imposed sanctions, it's an act of peace. When Belgium declares only a few hours ago it will recognize at the General Assembly, it's an act of peace. What you will see in New York might be the actual last attempt at implementing the two-state solution.
So
let that not fail.
Yeah.
Let that not fail.
Let me just pick up as my last point then, this question about whether we are 1 minute to midnight or in fact 1 or many more minutes past midnight. Is a two-state solution still possible? We had in the past couple of weeks Israel saying it would build on E1, this very technical term for an absolutely crucial hill where Israel has already built police station, road and so on, but now build residentially on a part of land that would split the West Bank. Is a two-state solution still possible?
The answer is yes. Any solution is possible. The problem is not, is the two-state solution the bad solution? It's a good solution. Or if one democratic state for all of its citizens from the river to the sea is it's a good solution. Any solution that includes the 3 rights of the Palestinian people is a good solution. The right to self-determination, that's enshrined, it's a birthright, inalienable right, no conversation. Remember, there was a law in the Knesset recently to specify that the right to self-determination from the river to the sea is exclusive to the Jewish people. Because they know this is the main right for us, to block a state. Number 2, the right of Palestinian refugees. I mean, you're talking about more than half of the Palestinian people, including myself. You cannot reach a solution without addressing their issues. They have properties, they have homes, they have issues. They have international law backing them. And the third is equality. Wherever we are, including Palestinian citizens inside Israel, have the absolute right to be equal. These are the 3 rights.
So these are principles that you and your colleagues have been arguing about for decades. What I'm asking at this exact moment that we're talking is, given the territory that Israel and settlements have taken, particularly from the West Bank, is a two-state solution really possible in terms of the land that is left here?
I was going with this, that the problem is not the vision. The problem is enforcing the vision. The problem is not the law. The problem is in the enforcement of the law. No one is enforcing it. And throughout all these processes of trying to implement the two-state solution, including Oslo, we had no accountability mechanism. Israel was quadrupling the settlements, no accountability mechanisms, no international guarantors, no nothing. So we need to learn the lessons. And I believe what we are about to do in New York is learning the lessons about the lack of recognition, so we correct that as a first step again. And I must say that I have heard the announcement here in London about the recognition, and it has, unless Israel stops the genocide or the war on Gaza, unless it stops the siege and the humanitarian assistance get accessed, and unless it stops the annexation of the West Bank. And let me explain. Recognition must be completely and utterly unconditional. It is a legal...
So the UK government was wrong.
It has to be unconditional. This is an inalienable right. You do not discuss with it anything else. And it is a legal obligation upon the UK government to stop the genocide, to stop the annexation, and to recognize the state of Palestine. It's not either or. But the two-state solution is possible, absolutely possible, should we garner sufficient international will to enforce it. And that's our plan in New York. We want to build a multilateral momentum, energy that includes the world, not just one mediator, and hoping that one mediator will jump on the wagon later towards implementing, actualizing, is that a word I can use, the two-state solution. And if you want my opinion, given the momentum now, the energy, the movement that we just discussed, given many things, I am more hopeful that we could actually implement it. It will take a lot of efforts. It will take courage and bravery in the part of the international community. But believe you me, as much as you hear Israel disregarding international actors, not heeding anything, in the very end, it lives on external support. And if that external support is genuinely, not half commitments, not half arms embargo, full arms embargo, not half sanctions, full sanctions, if that international momentum is genuine and serious, Israel will have to heed.
Okay, let's come on to some questions. I'd be surprised if there were none. Let me take, and I'm going to take them one at a time. If people could make them a question, not a speech, and if you could ask just one question, I'd be grateful, and I'll take some online as well, please. You need a microphone. If you could say who you are, that would be an extra bonus.
Thank you very much. I'm Salman Sheikh. I'm the CEO of the Sheikh Group. We work on dialogue and peacemaking. I've known Dr. Husam since the days in Gaza when I worked for the UN Middle East envoy, who, by the way, always said he was the architect of Oslo, that there was no independent referee when it came to Oslo. That meant settlement building. And secondly, there was no end destination. So, for sure, the end destination is what I wanted to talk to you about. I agree with you, Dr. Husam, about a more hopeful scenario, but many of us who've known Benjamin Netanyahu believe that he's now more nakedly pursuing a greater Israel project, which includes, of course, erasure of Palestinians in Gaza, but also in the West Bank. You've talked about a fledgling international coalition and pressure. What do you expect that international coalition, including the UK, to do if they start to annex and make announcements around the time of the UN General Assembly, annexation of parts of the West Bank or whole? And what do you expect the UK to do in that case?
You know, many of these questions, Salman, and it's good to see you, my friends. We were colleagues at the UN office at that time. You see, I'm an intruder into politics. Many of these questions have a very simple and straightforward answers, and sometimes it gets me a little bit heated to ask this question, because it was very straightforward when Russia invaded Ukraine. What should the UK do? Very straightforward. And for the rest of the world, the full force of the law, the full force of the law was applied instantly. No conversation. Invasion, conquering land, the inadmissibility of conquering land by force is the premise of the international order, the rules-based international order. So should the West Bank be annexed, or Israel announces that? By the way, let me dare to tell you, Salman, after that month in the West Bank, I think Israel de facto has already annexed the West Bank. It's just waiting for a moment to announce it. It is destroying the entire apparatus of the Palestinian government, the authority. It is not allowing any services to be provided It is re-establishing direct relationships with the Palestinian people. It is announcing that the civil authorities, the civil administration is in charge. It is even taking back authorities like land authorities. So now you cannot build anywhere without their permission. All this is preparation for. So this is a very grave and serious matter. So that's why we keep saying recognition is the first meaningful step, but it is by no means the last. It has to be followed by actual sanctions. Actual sanctions.
And what are the sanctions?
And not number one, and I'm really surprised that I have to say this. I should not have ever sat here and said this. Ban settlement products, number one. You keep saying every morning, every evening, from 10 Downing Street and from the Foreign Office and from every single establishment here, that these colonial settlements are illegal. And they are. It's not you saying.
It's international law. They are illegal under international law.
Okay, why do you import illegal products? Why? Why, Salman?
Okay,
yes.
so that's
okay.
point
No,
one.
start with that, number one.
Yeah.
And you know what? You are so against annexation. Why annexation is happening? Because of the settlements. So hit the settlers, hit the settlements. And I don't want you to hit them in the head. Hit them in the pockets. In the pockets. And the list of sanctions, and I see Andrew here from the FT, because I've discussed this with him before, the list of sanctions is very long. Sorry to call you off guard, Andrew. The list of sanctions is long, and we have provided that list to the government here. Be real, and don't be half-committed, and don't zigzag and dance around the issues. Illegalities must be marked. Okay, visa waivers. You granted Israel a visa waiver in the 50s, since Israel was established, because you consider Israel to be European. You give that to Israeli citizens, fine. What about that Israeli who live extraterritorially, illegally, in a colony in the West Bank? Does that person have the right to come to the UK under the visa waiver? Tell me. What about the dual citizens who serve in Israeli army? Tell me. So you tell me the international community, including the UK, have taken the sufficient action to stop this? No, they have not. No, they have not. Steps have been taken. And credit, when credit is due, you have to spell it out. The UK government, for example, have taken some steps. But too little, always too late. They have doubled their support to UNRWA. Very welcome, given the attack on UNRWA and the Palestinian refugee issue. They have withdrawn the previous opposition to the ICC process, and they said they respect the independence of the International Criminal Court, and we welcome that. They have imposed a partial arms embargo, minus F-35s, and we welcome that. They have announced a series of sanctions on 2 ministers and on settler violent groups and on the institutions that support these institutions. We welcome it. And they have they have announced their intention to recognize the state of Palestine, as you heard, on the 29th of July. But if you put all these steps, most of them are half measures. And all of them are not done in a way to really create leverage. So when the arms embargo is announced, you have official statements saying that, yes, we will impose an arms embargo, but we assure you this will not affect Israel's military capability. I mean, what are you doing? I mean, the whole idea of arms embargo is to affect Israel's... So these things need to be done with full heart, with meaning it, say it, do it as you mean it. And let's be together. This is not about punishing Israel. This is about saving Israel and saving the rest of us. Mean it, do it, walk with us, march with us for a very short period when we change the reality and tell every actor involved, this is the path. And we are serious about the path. And we will invest political capital in the path. As long as we dance around it, we will not get there. So this is the sanctions for you.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for the question. There was one right at the back, nearly at the back.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Sahin, and I'm a final year student studying international relations at London Metropolitan University. Firstly, while it is not my place to offer praise, I would like to thank you for the courage and resilience you are displaying whilst carrying out the honourable duty you are serving on behalf of your nation. Throughout the course of Israel's genocide in Gaza, you have continued to advocate for the recognition of Palestine and a two-state solution in the strongest way possible. Despite living with the grief...
Excuse me, sir, I'm sorry. Could you get to a question, please?
Yes, of course.
I respect why you want to make a short speech, but
of course.
Even a speech of praise, but it
Very
must be
shortly.
a question.
Despite living with the grief of the loss of over 60,000 Palestinians, of which 83%
does not have the air of a question in the making.
I must make this statement of fact.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Your Excellency,
you must ask a question.
You have mentioned that there is no accountability mechanism and no enforcement of law. So my question is this: should the state of Palestine be granted full recognition as a UN member state in the near future? What reforms to the international political legal system do you believe must follow to ensure accountability and timely action so that atrocities in Palestine and elsewhere are not ignored, as we have seen over the past 2 years?
Okay.
Thank you.
That is a long question, but it is a question.
Thank you very much, my friend, for your remarks. For the state, a member state in the UN, yes, that's exactly where we're going, and that's exactly what must happen. Not should happen, must happen, and that's what will happen. When we announced the state of Palestine in 1988, instantly we had 139 countries recognizing us. At that moment, more than the countries that recognize Israel. And as of today, we have 149 countries recognizing the state of Palestine. Comes the UN General Assembly, it will be 160 countries recognizing the state of Palestine. That's the absolute majority of the world nations. So no one has a veto power over the state of Palestine become a full member state. And we will take every diplomatic and legal venue to make sure that happens, because the one thing that is stopping us from that full membership is the US veto. Accountability. I'll tell you one thing just at the outset. If I would want to spend the rest of my life on any item that I listed, it will be in accountability, not in anything else. I'll leave my colleagues to do the diplomatic efforts everywhere. And you know why? Not because I seek justice for victims, and I mean victims, all victims, but because I want to make sure we have deterrence. I don't want to see this again in my lifetime, and I don't want my children to see this again. What happened in Gaza is not just a dent in our humanity. It's the most dangerous act of normalizing savagery, barbarity. It's the most dangerous act that demolished everything we learned after the horrors of the Second World War. And guess what? As we speak now, there is 100 Palestinians being slaughtered in Gaza as we speak.
And so what do you want?
It has become normalized.
What do you want the...
It's not getting the same reactions as it used to get. So how do you prevent this from happening again? The only way you do that is either you build your own military might to make sure you protect your children, you protect your people. Never again. And we have our moment of never again. Or you revert to international judicial system. The second is our choice. So the arrest warrants of the ICC must be implemented. And you, your generation and mine, must do everything we can. So every war criminal from all sides must be behind bars and pursued by the international justice. Without achieving that, we are just sitting ducks waiting for the next acts of genocide.
So thank you for that. And it was the question I was going to ask, which is what constitutes international accountability these days when the world and some of its main players are not agreed on the nature of that accountability, whether the Security Council or ICC and so on. But thank you for that. It's something the
No,
Chatham
hang on
House
one
is
sentence.
working.
No, hang on
Oh,
one
what
sentence. Why we don't agree? We immediately agreed to take the Russian president to the ICC. The
Yeah.
ICC has been...
Not every country is, and the US conspicuously is one of those that doesn't throw its weight behind that. So the world overall is not completely agreed on that, which is a weakness in the international accountability. But thank you. You answered where you're throwing your weight. I want to try and get one or two more. There's one right at the back. There was, and then I'm going to come to the side here. Yep. Right at the back with a white sleeve is all I can see. Yep.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I kind of want to ask a question in a somewhat similar vein. So it's been over a year since that ICJ ruling. You talk about the arrest warrants not being acted upon, and given how long Palestine has been ignored by the international community, why do you still have the faith that international diplomacy can be your route to recognition? And if you do, what do you see the future of this process when it has forgotten Palestine for so long?
Thank you.
I'm hopeful because of you, my friend, and because of the new generation. And I'm hopeful not because I have any doubts or illusions that the US will help actually implement the arrest warrants. My hope comes from the fact that I believe firmly that the problem is not in the law. And the problem is not even in the institutions of the law, as in the ICC or the ICJ. The problem in some countries, in a very imperialist, hegemonic way, think that there are laws for some and laws for others. I'll quote a very senior American senator here who said this last year when the arrest warrants came out of the ICC. He said the ICC was created not for America, not for Europe, and not for Israel. The ICC was created for Africa, for some countries in Asia, for Russia. So the problem is in the double standards of applying the law, number one. Number two is in enforcing the law, as I started by saying. Now, your role as a new generation, and my role and our role, is to make sure that the law is applied equally. I know this sounds very simple, but it's so hard to get. And I have hope in the newer generations, and I follow what is happening in the US, given that the US is the biggest obstacle to applying the law equally. I see your generation, and I just heard our friend from Yale University and many other universities. We followed the incumbents. Yes, we followed the backlash and the censorship and the blackmail. But we also see that growing numbers of people worldwide, that is reflected in national political processes, that they really want to see the full equal application of international law. It's not going to be easy. It will be difficult. But hell, you and I will have to keep going until we get to that point.
Thank you. I'm going to squeeze in one more quick question. There was one here at the side. I'm sorry, I'm taking them sort of in the order they came. The lady here on the side.
Good day, good afternoon. My name's Thanisa Naidu-Lewin. I'm from the South African High Commission in London. Bronwyn, thanks for giving me the floor. I know you don't want us to make statements,
No,
but
I don't.
I
really don't.
I'm really not going to make a statement, but I have to preface it as an international lawyer by stating that while I've been here, I've read about, sorry, I want to call you ambassador, but I'll call you the head of the Palestinian mission. Not a head. Okay, but it says that there. I noticed from your Wikipedia bio that you were born in a refugee camp, and therefore I feel that you have a particular place and a, what's the word, you are well placed to speak about your country's and your nation's history and the way forward. My question is, to what extent has South Africa's genocide case at the ICJ, together with the ICC arrest warrants, helped to broaden and widen the international community's help in BDS in bringing the cause to as many people as possible? And what more, apart from diplomacy and speaking about these in forums like Chatham House, can one do to assist Palestine recognize its full statehood? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. And I would want to start by answering all of your previous colleagues who asked questions by pointing to what is the way forward. And in my opinion, the way forward can be summarized by one country, that is South Africa. South Africa have shown the rest of the world how to be a responsible international actor. South Africa have shown the world how to actually take law to the letter and how to make sure that law is applied equally and to all. And I salute you, and I salute your country being from the Commission of South Africa. And actually, I am going to salute you myself, because I know Chatham House don't like the applause. And having said that, my friend, we need to keep the course that you started. And now we have multiple forums and groups, including the Hague Group, as you have followed, and South Africa was taking part of that to make sure that we apply the international law equally. But the ICJ was a watershed moment. And there are two moments in that. The moment South Africa and other countries took Israel to court for the crime of genocide, and as early as January 2024, the court came out with a clear ruling that it is plausible the crime of genocide is being committed, and therefore placed Israel officially on trial for genocide. Now, you and I know this is going to take years to come up with a final verdict. But the fact that the highest world court decided that the crime of genocide is plausible should have been the end of the conversation as far as the rest of the international community. But it wasn't. Until now, we suffer of convincing people. You're talking about January 2024, a year and, 8 months ago? Only 3 months after the war started, or the genocide started. So it helped get us to this moment, all the way to yesterday. I had convened a meeting with the First Minister of Scotland, who told me that now Scotland have announced that it is a genocide. So it took a long time for many international actors to actually come to the point that the ICJ has already revealed. But there was another ICJ moment that is as important. And it was the State of Palestine that actually referred the case to the ICJ via the General Assembly, the UN, which is to assess the legal situation in the occupied territories. And in July 2024, and please, this has to be the watershed moment and the cornerstone of our work from now on. The ICJ came up with the three main rulings. First, Israel's presence in the occupied territory is unlawful and must end without any negotiation. It's illegal. By the way, there are occupations that are lawful. There are military occupations that are lawful, but the ICJ, the highest world court, deliberated and decided that this is no longer a military occupation, this is annexation. This is no longer a temporary situation, this is a permanent situation, and therefore unlawful. Second, all of Israel's illegal settlements are unlawful and must be dismantled unconditionally in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Thirdly, and that's the most important part that us and the new generation will be working on, all third parties must cease immediately to provide any material, political, legal support to all this unlawful practice. And on this deck, on this pillar, we will build our international diplomacy. So it is paramount, my friend, the legal track. Israel is undermining the legal track. America is threatening international justices, revoking visas of ICC prosecutors, and what have you. But I'll tell you, you and us have to keep going on that track, because there is no other track that will bring justice and accountability and peace except the legal track. Because politics is about power and it's about asymmetry. And in our situation, politics does not deliver on its own. What can deliver is the clarity and equity of law.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for superb questions. Thank you online. I didn't take them online because it seemed to me they overlap with a very rich and wide discussion we've had, but thank you very much for asking them. Ambassador, we could have had this conversation at many points, so we could have it at many points in the future, but I wanted to have it now because we are in this crucial, very intense period coming up to the UN General Assembly. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.